Perfect. All right. So sorry about that. I guess we're gonna start from here for the recording for people who are gonna view it on YouTube. So yeah, we're gonna talk about the biking routes. I have them categorized, which is kind of nice. So you can see maybe you're a beginner road biker or a very advanced mountain biker. Maybe you're just trying to get some city routes or whatnot. So, and then we're gonna end with the resources. So some bike shops I think are really awesome to visit, and some co-ops that you can go and work on your bike at. Um, so here we're going to start off with the basic tools and how to use it. So here are some must-haves that I think any person wanting to get into cycling would need. Here we have some Allen keys. So most of the bike is built up with bolts and threads, and to move those bolts and have the bolts go through the threads and whatnot, you're going to need a 4 mil, a 5 mil, and 8 mil Allen key, and you can usually buy these in a little set. Or you can even use some you got out of IKEA furniture, stuff like that. Next up is the tire levers and a pump. So I'd highly recommend getting one of those big track pumps that have a gauge at the bottom, and you can pump up like this with a hose and whatnot. So the tire levers help you take the tires off and on. So usually tires don't last forever. So maybe you get like 2,000 kilometers out of the tires, or maybe you had a piece of glass go into the tire and it punctured the tube on the inside, something like that. Or maybe there was a piece of metal on the road and you sliced the tire on a piece of metal. You can use the tire levers to get it off, and you can use the pump to reinflate it. Next up are some wrenches. So an 8 mil, a 9 mil, a 10 mil, a 14 mil wrench, a 15 mil wrench. Usually these are for older bikes. So modern bikes use all Allen keys pretty much. And then the more old school bikes, so ones from the 60s, 70, 80, 90, 90s era usually have wrenches and stuff like that. So I really like to use an adjustable wrench on the older bikes, so you can it just maybe it's a little more economical, and you can just go around the whole bike with an adjustable wrench. Next up is a Phillips head screwdriver. So what kind of happens on some bikes, maybe the thing that moves the gears on the back, sometimes it gets stuck and it makes a whole bunch of noise, and then it gets out of whack a little bit. So you use a Phillips head screwdriver to kind of tune it in and make sure that it's running smooth. Same thing with the shifter on the front that moves the chain right by your feet. That Phillips head screwdriver will help you adjust that derailleur, so it knows when to shift and when not to shift, that kind of thing. Next up is a bottle of chain lube. So after about 100 kilometers of riding, depending on if you got it wet or if you got it dry, there's also all sorts of stuff like that. You're gonna need to use some chain lube. So they make specific bike stuff, and I would highly recommend it. Even though you could use some automotive stuff, I'd highly recommend the bike specific. Comes with a nice little nozzle where you can drip onto the chain and whatnot. So that's really nice. Next up is a chain breaker, because after about 1,000 kilometers, the chain's gonna stretch, and it's gonna stretch too much. So they need a new chain. So that chain breaker will let you take the chain off and on the bike. And finally is a degreaser. So sometimes you're going to have rust on your bike, some rust on some components, or the grease is going to be really thick, and you can use some degreaser to refresh it and make sure that it's running well. And then after you're done with the degreaser, you can hit it with some chain lube, and the bike will be running a whole lot better. So here we have some more tools. So this is if you're getting more advanced into cycling. So those are our basic. These are some more tools. Some cable cutters. So let's say the cable is frayed at the end, and when you adjust it, it all just frays apart, and you need a new cable. You're going to need a cutter to make sure that it's not too long for your bike. Next is a 17 mil wrench. So for those older bikes, it holds the back and the front tire on, so 17 mil will help you take it on and off. Some spanners, so these things will help you re-grease the cones on the inside of the bike. So if you ever wanted to redo the hubs of the bike, you're going to need some spanners to redo it. An adjustable wrench, like we mentioned before, maybe that's a more economical thing to do than than buying all separate wrenches. And then the final thing is a bottom bracket removal tool. And this one's kind of specific because you need to make sure that it's for your bike, because unfortunately bottom brackets are different from brands and different from kinds of styles of bikes, and it's just a big mess of which bottom bracket is your bottom bracket for your bike. And now we'll hop into maintenance. So this is a big thing that a lot of people kind of skip on the bike, because you hear those bikes going down the road, they're just super loud, and you know that the metal is grinding and whatnot. So maintenance is really, really key, just like a car. You keep the maintenance up, typically the car lasts a lot longer for you. And the first thing is that chain. So making sure that what drives the back wheel and drives or propels you forward is nice and lubed and nice and happy. Thankfully, YouTube is here, and it's made bike maintenance a whole lot easier. So there's the Park Tool website, which is a really, really big brand, and there's the GCN's website, which is another big cycling brand. And the two of them have put together every single maintenance video that you could ever want in life. So it's really good that you can go there, watch the video, work on the bike as you're watching the video. You can play the video back to get a piece of the video which you missed, and you can pause it, look at what they're doing exactly, and then you can keep on going. And it's super handy that these two companies have put together every single maintenance video you could ever think of. Also, you can use a service like your community bike shop. So a good example is Recycles on Bronson. I know they're moving, so it's gonna be a bit different. And reaching out to friends and whatnot. So cycling is a pretty big sport in Canada, and I think that pretty well everyone has a friend who might be passionate about it and could probably help you out. So it's always nice to have that friend who's already into it, and they can help you do it the first time, and then maybe you can do it the next few times that you need. Especially for the chain lube is a really good example. So next up, we have our biking routes. So here is a web link to maps.bikeottawa.ca, and they have a ton of stuff on there. They have typical routes that people do. There's also different GPS units where you can learn more about how like what other rides typically people are doing. Let's say if you want to go visit Carp, or let's say you want to go visit Chelsea, Quebec, or maybe you want to go to Gloucester, you can check out a different route on how to get there. And it's super, super helpful. A service like this and GPS apps. So here I've put together some stuff for mountain biking, where B is beginner, A is advanced, and E is for extreme. So that's like really, really tough stuff. So for Gatineau, a great thing about Ottawa is we have a ton of variety of trails, which makes it really, really interesting all the time to be riding here. So Gatineau Park, very first riding location, which I suggest everyone to go to. It's super beautiful. That's the photo with the little trail on the straight line. That's one that I took in full fall foliage. So it was just beautiful that day. It has beginner trails, advanced trails, and all the way up to like super extreme stuff that you see people doing in videos and movies and all that kind of stuff. With its beginner trails, you can start off on some paved stuff, which is really nice. Like they have really nice paved bikeways all the way through the park. And then there's also a paved parkway through the park as well. The next location I'll talk about is Mont Saint Marie, and this is the one on the right hand side of the screen where you see the person like going down a near vertical rock on their mountain bike, and it's got beginner stuff, um, and advanced stuff. Yeah, sorry, it has advanced to extreme. So I would not suggest coming here if it's your very first time mountain biking. But if you're looking for more of a challenge, maybe you've done some typical mountain biking trails in Gatineau Park, and you're ready to progress your skill on more of a steeper slope with tougher climbing and all that kind of stuff, then I think that Mont Saint Marie is a really awesome place to go to. Um, Also, Camp Fortune is kind of the same thing. So Camp Fortune is known for their ski hill, but in the summertime they also do mountain biking there, and their trails are pretty intense. They have some beginner stuff that you can get into if you want to get into mountain biking, but it's much more of an advanced and expert level um, trail system. South March, so that's located in Canada, and that's another really big trail system for Ottawa mountain biking, and they've done a lot of work there, and there's a lot of really unique features. And again, it's kind of like an advanced and extreme spot where they don't really have really nice beginner trails for people. So I would highly suggest uh, going there if you're ready for a bit of a challenge in when you're progressing in mountain biking. The green belt. So this is that whole area between Bell's Corners, Stittsville, and Canada, and then it goes over to the 416, and it goes north to kind of March Road area, and it's super awesome because it has all beginner stuff and some pretty advanced stuff if that's where you want to go. But it's a really good beginner mountain biking spot. Um, there's tons of signs and there's lots of little maps on tree posts which the city have put up, and you're never getting lost, and you're going like a kilometer to the next trail, then a kilometer over there, then a kilometer over here, and it's just a super fun area for beginners, and there's also some advanced trails for maybe if you're going with someone who you know is really big into mountain biking, and this would be a good spot because they can go have some fun in the advanced stuff as you're practicing your skills on the beginner stuff. And then the last kind of big location I'll say is La Rose Forest. So this one is on the 417 heading east. So you go past Gloucester. And it's when the 417 kind of bends south past Gloucester is La Rose Forest. And they have excellent beginner stuff and some advanced lines as well. So I would suggest that to maybe be your first place to go to because there's tons of traction on the trails. There's not a lot of rocks. It's very sandy. The soil is really sticky, so it's perfect for beginner mountain bikers. And then let's say you're not into the mountain biking stuff and you want to go in the road stuff, which is equally as fun. Like I was talking about before, Gatineau Park is such a beautiful area. Those are the two photos that you see on the screen there. So the bottom photo of the lady in the pink with the really bright sunlight. She's at the top of one of the well-known lookouts at the park called Champlain, and it's really beautiful in there. And like I was saying before, they have the paved trails for people. They have like a little more advanced gravel trails as well. And then they have really steep climbs and really fun descents where you can practice braking, and you can practice your uphill ascents as well to see how steep you can climb and how fast you can go up. There's everything from like smaller kids using it to professional athletes on the Canadian cycling team who live in the area and practice all the time because of the steep hills, and they can just go up and down a hill like 30 times in a night, and that's their kind of exercise for preparing the race. Another good area is Carp. So they have some older roads which haven't been commercialized a lot. They have some lower speed limits, and it's really fun cycling there. There's some good shops in the small town of Carp, which is really nice. Another cool place to go to is Aylmer, Quebec. So that's just like if you can imagine a line from Canada north across the river. It's on a beach. It's on a huge beach on the Ottawa River, and it's quite beautiful of a place to cycle in. And there's tons of small shops that you can go to for coffee and tea and pastries and dinner and lunch and all that kind of stuff. Another good place is Orleans, Ontario. So that's heading east on the Ottawa River Trail. And there's like 3 different trails you can take, which are all phenomenal. There's like the airport, I think it's called Airport Parkway, or maybe, sorry, that's going south. This is the Canadian Space Museum Parkway there. Kind of drawing a blank on the name. And then there's the paved Ottawa River pathway, and then there's a gravel pathway at the very bottom of the river, which is super scenic, and it's really, really nice to do some road cycling crossed with a little bit of gravel cycling, and it's just a really fun time. So now here are those kind of other weird kinds.
There's a question in the chat from the last section.
Right. Sure. We'll talk about this in a minute. We'll head back to the last section. Let's see, how do Adib, do you want to say the question here? I'm struggling to find the.
Sure. Yeah. Abdullah is asking, what is the level of difficulty for each road bike trail?
Oh, okay. So for this kind of stuff, it's instead of the level of difficulty, it's really how long you want to ride and how quickly you want to ride. So you can ride all these destinations at a beginner level, but if you want to keep advancing, you can just go a bit longer, and you can kind of push yourself a bit farther. So maybe you get from A to B at a certain time, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a different thing than mountain biking, where just to complete the trail is a beginner, advanced, or expert or extreme level. While the road biking is you can complete every trail for sure. It's just your endurance and how quickly you would like to ride, and how many calories you want to burn to push yourself that far.
So he added difficulty as is steep, and Zenon commented that Gatineau is very steep as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The Carp, Aylmer, and Orleans are definitely less steep, but I think that you should still try some of the stuff in Gatineau Park, just because when you're on the road bike, it's a lot easier to climb steep hills than it is on the mountain bike. We'll jump into the weird other kinds of cycling that people are into. So there's dirt jumping, which is a lot of fun. It's the photo on the bottom right at this kind of dirt pump track area, where it's really fun because you don't have to pedal anything. You can just use the momentum and your body weight to push through the little rollers and whatnot. And then there's also BMX and skate park riding, which you can do at any of those concrete facilities that you see. You'll see BMX riders, and you'll see people on the dirt jump bikes, and people on their hardtails, and people on their full suspension bikes, even their road bikes sometimes. Trying to progress with the bumps and going off ledges and hopping onto ledges and all that kind of stuff. Bronson is kind of near Somerset and Bronson. There's a really fun skate park there. And then there's Legacy, which is in Algonquin College area. And then there's a BMX track in Nepean, kind of southwest of almost Fallowfield area, which you can see is the photo on the left-hand side with the people with the number tags and they're racing and whatnot. And then a place that I really like to go to currently is there's an indoor pump track at the Yard, which is in City Center. It's at Bayview Station area, and it's really fun to go there in the wintertime. And you can, it's nice, it's heated. There's really fun pump track line. There's 2 of them, which are just a ton of fun. And next we'll talk about the safety on kind of rotating from maintenance, working on bikes, where to ride, into safety. So here are a few things which don't really make sense, but when you put them all together, they make a lot of sense. So starting on the right-hand side of the screen, we have brakes. So it's really important that you have brakes on your bike that work well. Just because you don't want to be going down a really, really steep hill, grab your brakes, and there's no brakes. So it's a very scary moment. So it's really, really important to have well working brakes. And if you don't feel confident with working on the brakes yourself, I would suggest taking it to a bike shop, and they can work on it for you, just because it's really important that they work. Next up is visibility. So if you're riding in all black at nighttime, it's probably not the best idea. So I would suggest having one of these high vis vests that you can. It's like a vest with no arms, where you can just zip it up and zip it down, and you can take it off and take it off, or sorry, take it off and take it, or take it on and take it off. And they just have a quick zipper, which is really, really nice. So having one of these is really nice, and I would highly suggest it. I have one myself for when I'm riding at night, and I know that all I'm doing is riding at night that day. Next up is a good pair of lights. So it's actually law in Ontario that you're supposed to have lights. So police officers can give you warnings and even fines if you don't have lights on your bicycle at night, and you're planning to ride at night. So it's really important that you have an amber one in the back and a light or yellow one in the front. And it's also important that they're charged, because if the light isn't charged before you go, then it's kind of useless. So now we're going to talk about a fun topic, bike packing. So it's a really, really interesting subject where it blends camping and biking together. So I'm going to talk about the route here on the map, and then I'm going to quickly switch over to my Instagram, and I can show you guys a few photos of what it was like for my friend and I to complete a bike packing trip. So for those of you who don't know, I would categorize bike packing as like a long endurance bike ride. So you could do it for a whole day, and let's say you know that there's not going to be any facilities around for the whole day of cycling. So you know that you got to pack all of your water, you got to pack all of your food, and that kind of thing. And then you can get more advanced into bike packing, where you're going to combine the camping and the biking portion, which is even more interesting. So instead of just going out for one long day, now it's going to be a 2-day trip, where you're going to have to sleep over somewhere with all your gear and your bike and your water and whatnot. So my friend and I took on a challenge this summer where we did a single night bike packing trip from Ottawa all the way to Taylor Lake. So on the map here, it's you can see Lake Phillip, and you can see Lake Niche, and you can see Lac Mousseau, and it's west of Lake Phillip, kind of where those blue signs are on the left half of the map. And it was a really fun experience, because neither my friend and I had done an overnight biking trip. So we learned a lot about what to bring, what not to bring, and we were able to ride the dirt trails most of the way through. So we started in our places in Ottawa at about 2 o'clock, and we rode all the way until about 6, 7 o'clock in Gatineau Park, and we were going through all those tight trails, and we were climbing up and down, and we ended up doing 2,000 meters of climbing in the trip. So that's going like 2 kilometers in the air this way, and we did about 160K on the flat. So I'm not sure what average gradient that would be, but I guess it's somewhere around like a little under 2%, which is pretty steep. So for that kind of trip, it's kind of funny when you get to Gatineau Park. There's like a base, and then it starts to ramp up, and then you get to the top of the park, and then you're kind of on the plateau, and then you can drop off the park over by Lake Phillip and Lake Taylor. You can start to go back down. So it's kind of like a rise in elevation from here is like the Ottawa River on either sides of the park, and then the park is like boom up here. So those slopes to get up to the plateau of the park are pretty steep. But it's quite a lot of fun to combine the camping and the biking, because it's different than just having a car or doing a small backpacking trip or something like that. It's kind of similar to a canoe trip where you have a vehicle that's taking you different places. It's a really fun experience because you can stop at shops on your way, you can fuel up, you can drop all your gear at one location, you can move over to another location, that kind of thing. I'm just going to try here to get the chat viewing. So, oh geez.
Yeah, can you see, or would you like me to?
Geez, I'd like to see, but I'm.
Or maybe Zenon, are you able to unmute and just ask your question to?
Yeah, sure. My question was just do you have to get permits, or was camping pretty chill in the park?
Camping's not so chill in the park, so we did have to get some permits. There's park rangers everywhere, so
Okay.
they're everywhere. So what we did is we had to book like a couple of months in advance, and we booked it with a couple other people. But then with COVID and everything, some people had to drop from the trip and whatnot. So it was kind of only us left with the reservation for that weekend. And
do you have to camp in specific places in the park?
Yeah, they do. But
okay.
The nice thing about Taylor Lake versus like Lake Phillip is that Taylor Lake is very exclusive, where there's like there's good amount of areas between the different campsites, while Lake Phillip is more of a built up camping area where they've bulldozed it, planted some trees, and it's kind of just like row by row of campsites. So if you are planning, I'd highly suggest Taylor Lake, or you can even go to La Pêche, which is another lake to the west of Taylor Lake. Yeah, and if anyone else wants to, they can unmute and they can ask any questions about it. I'm gonna stop the screen share real quick, go to the Instagram, show you guys some photos, and then we'll come back to the presentation.
Hey, Alex.
Yep.
How much water did you need to bring? Like how heavy was it?
Yeah, so geez. So what we did is I have this gravity filter for like canoe camping and backpacking and that kind of stuff. So we only carried like a liter and a half. Yeah, we only carried about a liter and a half on ourselves. I'm just gonna be back. I just need to grab my laptop charger. So I'll continue your question, Josh.
Then I guess, Rebecca, you had Abdullah answer your question for the bike shops. I haven't heard of any that are closed exceptionally. Um, I know that they're open, like I'm seeing them on my Facebook that they're putting up some ads, but we can ask Alex if he knows anything special about that.
All right. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. So Josh, we had about 1.5 liters per person on us, and that got us all the way from Ottawa to Carbide Wilson Mills, which is like halfway in our trip. And then we filtered some water at the Prime Minister's place, and and then we filled up our 1.5 liters, and then we made it to Taylor Lake, and then we had our gravity filter, and we filtered another bunch of water. So
Yeah, that's probably the play.
yeah, and then on the way back, we filtered at we made it a little bit further south instead of Carbide Wilson, which is like halfway. We made it to Mackenzie King Estates, which I'm blanking on what the lake is called there, but yeah.
And like the campsites have water too, like the main campsites, right?
Well, yeah, where we were was like Taylor Lake, so they don't have water there because it's a little more rustic.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure at Lake Phillip they have it. I'm not sure because they have shower facilities, but I'm not confident that they have like drinkable water. That might be something to
I
look
see.
into.
I think it is. I walked there. I hiked there and it says you can drink the water, I think.
Okay.
Cool, thanks.
All right, I'm just gonna put on the screen share. Okay. All right, so here's a photo on the Chaudière Ridge or Chaudière Bridge, sorry, and that was like that was going across the bridge to Gatineau. Oh geez, sorry, I clicked the wrong. All right, this is the setup that I had. So you can see there's a large bag on the back of the bike. There's a large bag on the front of the bike. And then we have 2 water bottles and we have some tent poles lashed to the top of the bike. And then we have a little carrying case for a phone at the front. And then this is the site, Lake Phillip with my friend and I. He had a similar setup with a big bag at the front, and then we also had a backpack with our setup as well, which worked out really well. Okay, go back to the presentation.
I'll ask a question then, Alex, since you showed these 12 pictures.
Yeah.
Do you need a special kind of pack to hook it up to the bike, or
You don't specifically need a special kind of bike, but the pack is specific. So they make one for the back of the bike, they make one for the front of the bike, and there's lots of different companies and there's lots of different ways you can attach them, but those bags are pretty specific. So there are ways you can just use like a dry bag as well on the front and a dry bag on the back
yeah.
by using some special rubber ties and whatnot. So
Okay.
it is possible to do it without the pre-bought gear. So, and then you can also do it very affordably with just a backpack. So, which is pretty good. Does anyone else have any? Does anyone else want me to go to a certain photo or talk about a certain thing on the trip?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any specific gear besides like bike tools that would kind of differ from a regular backpacking trip?
That's a good one. I think the only thing other like the one bike tool which I would say is chain lube, which is kind of like biking specific. So if it's really dusty out or if it's raining out, it's very helpful to have some chain lube with you, just to keep that drivetrain nice and quiet. So that'd be an extra item. And your puncture repair kit is really essential. So if you're running tubes in your tires, then make sure you have not just one extra tube, two extra tubes, and then make sure you have some patch kits for those tubes. And yeah, the other thing is like, make sure you have a second pair of shoes, because odds are is your feet are going to get wet during the bike trip if there's any bit of mud, or if there's any bit of water on the trip. So, and it also might be helpful, like if you're running those kind of plastic pedals with the little clip, you might get to a location where you need to hike with your bike, which happened to us a few times on the trip. So maybe your second pair of shoes is a pair of running shoes, or a pair of like Vans or something like that that have a lot more traction than your current cycling shoe. So just because you don't want to get to a spot and really struggle to climb with those hard-soled cycling shoes.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
You mentioned that
Yeah, go for it.
you mentioned that you had a hike for it. How much of like, or kind of two-parters, do you think you could do a similar route without having to hike? Like now looking back at kind of the terrain, and then how much hiking did you actually end up doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess looking back on it, it really depended on like we were going in a pretty straight line through the park, and so it would have added some kilometers east and some kilometers west of our route, to avoid some steeper slopes. But yeah, we definitely could have avoided the hiking. I personally kind of enjoyed it. It added to the trip, where it's like, wow, it's so steep here that we can't even cycle. We have to push our bikes with our hands over here and our one hand on the top and stuff like that, or we have to throw our bikes on our back, which is really tough because instead of weighing 30 pounds, they now weigh 50 pounds because of all that extra gear and water and food and all that kind of stuff. And the amount of distance that we hiked, I'd probably
Like percentage.
yeah,
Percentage.
percentage. Oh, like if we traveled 120 clicks, I'm gonna say a kilometer of that was so like 0.7, 0. Yeah, like a really small
It's not bad, yeah.
So you can do it and still mostly be biking.
Pardon me?
Like if you do the path, you can do it and still mostly bike. And then if you want to just
Yep.
only bike, you can take an extended route.
Exactly. Yeah. And it depends. Like as my friend and I were both on mountain bikes, so we're gonna cater to what the bikes really are there for, and why we have all these tires and suspension and all this gearing. So we definitely favored the advanced side of the trails. So. All right, we'll hop back over to the presentation.
If you can just also answer Cameron's questions, asking how much food did you bring on that specific trip?
Okay, yeah. So we left at lunchtime. So we had a big lunch in Ottawa, and then we packed a dinner, we packed a breakfast, and then we packed a lunch for and snacks as well. So so we did one dinner, one breakfast, one lunch, and I would say all the food could fit in one of those like metal lunchbox that you see when you had as like a kid. One of those metal lunch boxes would be about how much food that we brought. The bigger thing, like Joshua was saying, was the water. The water is pretty bulky. It's pretty heavy, and if you don't want to keep on stopping, then it's a pretty big it's pretty big exhaust. And the nice thing about the food is we did a lot of like energy bars and protein bars, and then we did some dehydrated Knorr sides for dinner, and we had some sausage, cheese, some bread, and one like that. So that's nice where you can stuff it in all the little parts of the bags that you haven't used. And then when you're at camp, there are bears in Gatto Park, so you're gonna want to make sure that you hang your food. So we brought like an extra dry bag, or a grocery bag could even do it, and a bit of rope, and you can hang it over a tree, so, which is a good idea. And actually, the bears aren't what you got to worry about. It's the raccoons, which are just a nuisance. So yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'll answer all the questions at the end, or the rest of the questions. We'll go through the resources here. So some community bike shops. There's one of the big ones in Ottawa is Recycles, and I'm not sure if this is so accurate with, because they might have changed their they've changed their location. It's now a different bike shop that's inside, and it's really cool because you can gain volunteer experience. Professional bike mechanics are there to help you out with all your different biking needs. They have secondhand parts. It's a really, really cool spot. And then there's some bike stores which have primarily new stuff. So Kunstad is a really big one. There's Full Cycle in Ottawa. There's probably like 20 bike shops in Ottawa because it's a really, really popular sport here. All right, I think that is it for the presentation. So I'll stop sharing, and then I'll still be answering questions, and I'll record the people's names who's asked a question, and I'll put it in a randomly generated sorter, and we'll get you your prize in a bit. So.
Any more questions for Alex?
Yeah, I guess I know that there's around Carleton, there's like a bike path, like how it works with the cars and everything. It's not ideal. Is there any like other places that, like, yes, they're officially bike paths, but aren't like that bike friendly? So like to try and avoid for new bikers?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite trails is to do, so if you're at Carleton, you can hop across, you can hop across the locks there, and then you're on the O-Train Trillium Trail, which goes from Hawksback all the way to Bayview Station. And that trail is quite nice. There are a lot of cyclists on it, so most of them are really, really nice, and they'll give you lots of space if you're just a beginner and whatnot. And then when you get to the end is the Ottawa River Trail, and there's that goes from about I'm trying to think, like the west end of Westboro, and it goes all the way east to Petrie Island kind of area. And that trail is pretty nice because you can find a secluded section along the trail, which is great for beginner cyclists. And then if you want to venture far and find a really kind of a more beginner area on the pavement, you can go across the river to the Le Voyageur Trail, which is just along parallel to the Ottawa River Trail. It's on the north side of the river on the Gatineau section, so that one's really good for beginners. And then if you're comfortable riding in a bit of traffic on O'Connor Street heading towards downtown, they have a really good bike lane there with lots of separation between the cars and yourself. So.
I have a question. I can't seem to find the Carp Road Bike Trail. Where exactly is it?
So that one is called the old. Geez, I think it's called the Old Carp Road. Let me look it up real quick. I believe it's called the old Carp Road. Yeah. So it is called Old Carp Road. It goes from South March, and it takes you all the way into town. So
And it's
that
the
one,
road itself.
yeah. It's a road itself. So, but it's a 40-kilometer-an-hour road where there's not a lot of traffic, so it's pretty safe for cyclists. So.
Cool, thanks.
And then kind of in that area, there's another trail called the. I'm just trying to think here. It's the. It's the Trans Canada Trail, which runs from, or at least the section that people cycle in Ottawa. It runs from Canada area all the way to Carleton Place, and that's an only biking trail as well. That one's pretty fun. So.
Here's another question for you. Have any advice or recommendations on some like very basic tune-up maintenance that you can do on kind of like I've got an old bike that I'm quite happy with, but I'm one of those people that like does not do any maintenance whatsoever. So like besides chain lubing and cleaning as you recommended, is there any other simple things?
Yeah, so the chain moving and that kind of thing. Another thing is wheel truing. So if you see your wheel and there's kind of like a wobble in the wheel, you can the spokes there, they're under like a certain amount of tension, so you can like bring the spokes over here to make the wheel nice and straight. That's a really good thing. There's the cleaning and the lubing, and then another one is greasing the headset of the bike when it comes together. I would suggest greasing the seat post as it moves in and out of the bike. Take it out, clean it up, put some fresh grease on it. It should be good. I would also just suggest taking the pedals off the bike, cleaning the pedals up, putting some new grease in the pedals and on the threads of the pedals. Put it back into the bike. And then you can also take off the sprocket, or sorry, the cassette of the bike, the sprockets in the back, and you can re-lube the interface between the sprockets and the free hub down there. So those would be some more advanced things, but definitely start off with like when you start to hear the chain on your bike, you know it's time to put some new grease on it, is kind of what I say. So if the bike isn't silent, it's time to do some maintenance.
Cool. Thanks.
No problem.
Wait, going off that, any winter maintenance? I rode my bike in the winter and like I just fixed it up yesterday, and I was quite sad because it was quite rusty. But anything to do like when you come home from a winter like commute and then to avoid the rust in like -20,
yeah,
it's like difficult.
yeah, absolutely. So I got a few hacks for that. I've been cycling throughout the winter for like the past 4 years, kind of thing, to and from Carleton, and the bikes definitely don't last as long. But if you do want to use it in the wintertime, I would use a wet chain lube, is what it's called. So instead of a dry chain lube, it's a wet chain lube, which is pretty interesting. It uses uses more silicone in the chain lube to kind of keep the water and keep the salt and all that stuff away from it. The only issue with it is it just makes a mess of your drivetrain, and you'll get really thick amounts of lubricant, like on the derailleur and stuff. So it takes longer to remove it before you put some new lube on there. But it's really just making sure that all those moving parts of your bike are lubed very frequently. So if you're really meticulous, you can lube it after every single ride. And if you're less so meticulous about me, like me, you can lube it. I would say every week, kind of thing. And
Yeah, I just like scraped it down when sometimes it's like -20, and I just like toss the bike in the shed, and then I like it's too cold to fiddle with it, but
yeah. It's definitely
it's tough.
It's definitely kind of. I guess I'm fortunate. I have a semi-heated parking garage, so when you
Oh, okay, right.
can bring the bike in, it's like -5 instead of -2.
Yeah, luxury.
Yeah, you can work on it a bit better, but yeah, for the shed, geez, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I usually just like throw some of my like Nalgene water at it and like take a brush and just like try and bristle off any like debris. But usually I just run inside.
All right, I'm just picking the random name here with. All right. So the winner is Aiden. You're gonna get a $20 gift card to Full Cycle in Ottawa.
Congrats.
Thank
Aiden.
you. That's great.
Yeah, you can buy some chain lube. You can buy some cable.
Apparently, I need it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, after maybe if you just want to pop your email in the chat, that's how we're gonna get it to you. So I think it's just an gift card that you can redeem at Full Cycle. So I called them and I have it set up, but I just have to go through with it. All right. Well, if anyone else has some questions, okay, I just found the chat feature on this now. I feel like a dummy. I was in like the view mode instead of like the gallery mode, and then it just didn't go well. All right, well, if you have any more questions, you can always hit us up on Instagram, or you can always message us on Facebook, or you can comment down below on the event and stuff like that, and we'll get back to you on any of that kind of stuff. So thank you everyone for listening. I'll end the presentation now, and have a good rest of your night. So
Thanks, Alex and Adib.
hey, no problem.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.